Hello, thank you for joining us. Sorry for the delay. This evening, the Louisiana Tech School of Design has two presentations by MFA candidates in their third year. The first person we have will be Nathaniel Rowe, who is doing work in photography. Our second presenter will be Sergeant Marjanovic, who is doing work in graphic design. So our first person will be Nathaniel Rowe. Nathaniel, I will hand it off to you and you can present your work from here.
All right. Hello, my name is Nathaniel Rowe, and I am a third-year MFA candidate in photography at Louisiana Tech University. Tonight, I'll be presenting my thesis, How to Be Gay in the South. This body of work includes wet plate collodion tintypes, found objects, and stereoscopic images and video. As part of my research for this project, I have been looking at male friendships in the 19th century versus today. The Victorian era was a time of great social and cultural changes. I'm looking at this time period because of a lifelong fascination with history, especially an interest in the history of photography, which was first invented by Joseph de Piernis in 1826, but wasn't until 1839 that other forms of photography were announced to the public. It was common during this time for men to enter into close friendships with other men before marriage. These would be more intimate than what would now be called best friends. Showing affection for each other, hugging, embracing, and even kissing were common in these non-sexual relationships. In an era when people might only have one photograph made in their lifetime, thousands of examples could be found of men embracing. These were not taken in the privacy of the home, but in local studios and other venues. In modern day American society, these men would be perceived as gay. I will now give a brief history of photography and portraiture that are important for understanding my artwork. Before the advent of photography, silhouettes were the poor man's portrait. These images were created by using lamps to project a person's shadow onto paper, which was then drawn in and painted in, or black paper was used and cut out into the shape. Also popular in the mid-19th century through to the 20th, stereoscopic viewers allowed people to see 3D images. Mattel's ViewMaster is a more contemporary version of a stereo viewer. Stereoscopic images are created by taking two pictures at the same time at slightly different angles. One image is for the left eye and one is for the right. The brain interprets these two images as one three-dimensional image. This three-dimensional image has the look of a cut paper diorama. The stereoscopic effect was first discovered by British scientist Charles Wheatstone in 1838. This was 1 year before the announcement of photography was made to the public. In the 19th century, travel and landscape cards allowed people to see other parts of the world for the first time in their lives. And erotic and pornographic slides were some of the most popular. In 1856, the tintype was invented and patented by Hamilton Smith. This was the first photographic process developed in America. These were popular during the Civil War because of the cheap cost to produce them and how fast they were to make. Exposure times for tintypes and other early processes were very long, sometimes several minutes. Headrests were used to keep the subject in place and from getting blurred. In this tintype, the head clamp is visible behind these stacked chairs. The tintype process creates a direct positive, meaning the image is projected onto the plate as a mirror image of the original scene, which cannot then be flipped back to a normal image after processing. Everything on the final plate, including text, will be reversed. Sally Mann is a contemporary artist who uses wet plate collodion extensively in her work. Mann's work addresses issues of family and mortality. She began using wet plate negatives in the mid-1990s. Her 2007 exhibition and 2009 book, Proud Flesh, focused on her husband Larry, who suffers from muscular dystrophy. The wet plate process is an imperfect one. Fingerprints, scratches, and spots are common traits of wet plate photography. But like relationships, every wet plate is a one of a kind. David Emmett Adams is another contemporary artist who works with the wet plate process. Adams makes tintypes on found objects. Here he has used discarded cans he collected from an old railroad that ran through the desert. In Adams' work, the subject matter and the materials always relate to each other. With this series, 36 exposures, he used film roll canisters his students would discard. He repurposed the metal of the cans to make tintype portraits of his students. For my body of work, I'm using historic processes to address a contemporary and personal issue, my relationship with my husband Larry, and how we feel social pressure to conform in public. Even though we are both out of the closet, we feel societal pressure to keep a physical distance from each other when out in public. We are forced back into the closet over and over again, so to speak. The concealing of identity is a theme in this work. My husband and I feel the need to conceal part of ourselves when we are out in public. In these two silhouette pieces, the identity is almost entirely removed. Viewers can only see a small part of the person. Thinking about how much of the person you have to see to know who they are led me to looking at the hands and how much information is communicated by small scars, freckles, and even jewelry. I replaced our wedding bands with a piece of string to serve as a more generalized reminder of our commitment to each other. To make my work more universal, I look for ways to depict people anonymously. Here I've used two different pairs of boots placed under their bed to represent a couple. Hiding places run throughout these tintypes. Here I've used the space beneath the bed as a hiding place for erotic stereo cards, much like teenagers would hide pornographic magazines and cigarettes from their parents. Using stereo viewers is a personal experience. They can only be used by one person at a time. Using the inherent privacy they offered the viewer, I took this as an opportunity to show the identity of the person being photographed, this one being my husband. These portraits were captured digitally by moving the camera slightly for each image. They were then contact printed in the darkroom by placing a transparency directly on the light-sensitive plate and exposing with an enlarger. Exploring ways to incorporate more traditional portraiture into the work, I placed this tintype self-portrait in a pocket watch. When closed, these watches become a mini closet. For these larger tintypes, when the face is shown, I obscure it in some way. The body position here is closed off and somewhat uncomfortable at being exposed. Isolating the figure in a shadowy arbor of wisteria creates another silhouette. This public area allows for some amount of disconnection from the rest of the park, but it never achieves total privacy. Larry has a more outgoing personality than I do. I chose to show this by seating him in a more public space on this bench. But without anyone else in the photograph and the barriers of the railing and the river between him and the city, he has also been isolated. Feeling like we must keep a distance from each other out of fear of persecution creates an almost barrier between us. This physical space reoccurs throughout this body of work. Larry and I visit local parks most weekends. This bit of nature in the city is a nice respite. With this tent type, I'm using an almost playful way of depicting hiding who one really is in a public setting. We have never felt comfortable showing affection in public. On more than one occasion, we have been refused service at restaurants because we are a gay couple. We have never held hands, hugged, or kissed outside our home. We don't even audibly say I love you in public. Larry and I have been together since 2008, and we've gotten married twice, actually. The first time was September 4th, 2013 in Iowa. It was the closest state we could get married in. The second was the day of the Supreme Court decision on June 26, 2015. We left work early and went to the courthouse. We were the 26th gay couple in the state of Arkansas to be married. There is an assumption that marriage equality is a guaranteed right, but it can be overturned with another court case, with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas saying he would vote against it again if it comes up for vote. So why the focus on the South? Compared to national trends, people in southern states have a higher discomfort with the LGBTQ community. Even something like looking at a coworker's same-sex wedding photos is more uncomfortable for people in the South. Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Texas have so-called don't say gay regulations for public schools, which prohibit teachers and staff members from discussing LGBTQ people and issues in public schools. Missouri has laws in effect preventing schools or districts from adding LGBTQ protections to anti-bullying and non-discrimination policies. And the majority of southern states have no laws protecting LGBTQ people from discrimination. As part of my thesis studies, I have begun to expand into videography work. Here's a short film I have made depicting ways my husband Larry and I have had to adjust our behaviors in public to avoid persecution.
How to be gay married in the South. So, you found that special someone you want to spend the rest of your life with and have taken the big step of entering into holy matrimony. But what do you do now that you're married? Here are some simple tips to keep in mind when in public and social settings. When out to dinner, never sit next to each other. Always sit across the table from each other. Never stand too close to each other. Maintain an arm's length between you. Leave room for the Lord in your marriage. When introducing your husband, never refer to your relationship, as this can make people uncomfortable. Simply say, I would like you to meet Johnny, or this is Biff. Hand-holding is strictly prohibited. Words of affection should never be audible in public. Silently mouth, I love you, and be sure to hide what is being said from those around you. And never, under any circumstances, kiss. Yes, it's very simple to be in a gay marriage in the South. As long as you pretend you're not.
I would like to ask everyone to consider how it would feel to be in a similar situation to that in the film. With COVID-19 and social distancing, the general public is getting to experience this to an extent for the first time. But while people are keeping a distance to prevent getting sick, people in southern states do so to keep from being persecuted. I would like to thank everyone, and if you would like to see more of my work, you can visit my website, and I'll be taking comments I'll be answering questions in the comments section. Thank you.
So Nate, I'm going to read some of these questions that are coming up on YouTube for you. And one question is, why are the photographs done at a small size, and does this relate to your message?
Sorry, I couldn't get YouTube to work. So the size I'm working with, so I'm shooting with an 8x10 camera and a 4x5 large format camera. So the size that I can get out of the 8x10 is an 8x10. The plate holder I have is modified, so it's 7.5 by 9.25. This is slightly larger than the traditional whole plate size of the 19th century, which was like 6.5 by 8.5 inches. And I'm using that size because it's a fairly good size that's still somewhat public, but is also a bit private. Can only be really viewed by one person at a time to really be able to study it. And then it kind of goes into the privacy aspect of my work and, the concealment. And then the smaller pieces are 4x5, and then even smaller for the pocket watches and the stereo cards. So they're even more of a private, experience.
So another person asked, does Arkansas have any laws that protect LGBTQ individuals and couples? If not, have any laws been up for vote that you are aware of?
Arkansas doesn't have any protections for the LGBTQ community. And even in 2017, they passed a law prohibiting cities from passing ordinances to give protections to the community. So no, we don't have any protections here.
Another question is, do you find a connection between your work and, let's see if I can pronounce this name, Hover Slovink's series Partners in Crime?
I just recently found out about his work, and there is a connection. He's using large format as well, and basing his images on cabinet cards of wedding photos from the 19th century, but he's doing so with same-sex couples in their home. So there's kind of the generalized, connection, if it's in the same community, but they are, and stylistically, they're a little similar, but whereas his work, he's looking at multiple couples, and I'm just looking at my husband and I.
Okay, so one of the questions come in is, this person is curious if you are suggesting if other gay couples should adopt the same methods as you.
I mean, I think everybody should do what they feel comfortable doing. This is how Larry and I, feel that we have to live our lives. And, I hope other people feel comfortable, being more open with their relationship. I think younger generations, are more comfortable, expressing themselves in public than, people my age and older probably do.
Another person has a question of, do you plan to extend the line of this work in the future? If so, where do you see it going, or are you planning to move on to other projects?
I've already started working a little bit on other projects, but I never really think of it as a project as truly done. I always, you know, it could be years down the line and I'll have ideas and add to it. So uh, while I'm not, making as much work right now directly for this project, I don't ever see it as really done.
Uh, One of our viewers has the basic question of how does collodion adhere to a plate?
It's a little bit of magic. No, it's so collodion is a mix of cotton fibers, ether, and some other stuff, and it was used during the Civil War to close wounds on the battlefield. So it's a very sticky substance that dries fairly hard, and it's in a liquid state. So when you pour it on the plate, you have to you kind of have to be a little, let's see, you treat it kind of like you would be carrying a tray of drinks in a restaurant. And once it goes into the silver nitrate, that makes it light sensitive. And then it's kind of in a gelatinous state until you rinse it and dry it. So.
Okay. One person asked, do you plan on incorporating your photographs into other objects in the same way that you did with the pocket watches?
Yes, I'd like to. I'd like to, make cufflinks and other kind of personal objects that kind of have a distinctly masculine kind of, slant to them, for my husband and I. With, when COVID-19 happened, I didn't have as ready access to a lot of things like to be able to cut metal down. So I wasn't able to do some of those things, but yeah, I would like to incorporate more objects into the work.
Okay. Could you explain the difference in tone between your short video and your photographs?
Yeah, with the video, I'm basing it on the mid 20th century educational films, and it was kind of a laugh to keep from crying, kind of a piece to where I wanted to have kind of more humorous tone to it compared to the tintypes, which I think are a little more serious and with their darker tones. And I think that they reach, kind of different people in different ways. And I think by having these two distinct different ways of reaching people, I can reach a lot more than I could with just, tintypes or with just video.
Okay. Another viewer is curious, are you wanting this work to continue to be more personal about only you and your husband's experience, or do you want it to become part of a larger scale conversation?
I'd like to become, part of a larger scale conversation. I have talked to friends and tried to incorporate, some of their stories and experiences. I don't want to hijack anybody's story and try to, do it as my own, but I can tell the most genuine story, by using my own voice. So, but I would like to start, including more people in the community, even, people that aren't, white male gay couples.
Okay. The final question it seems we have is, which format, as far as still camera or video, do you feel best allows you to express your thoughts in the work you're currently producing?
I've been doing still photography for almost 20 years. And, that's of course what I'll probably always feel most comfortable with. I like, the ability with video that I am not stuck to just one single image. I can, stretch the visual plane out longer. I was very inspired, growing up by music videos. And, I think that kind of short format of, this kind of long visual piece has always been very evocative for me. So as far as comfort, I'm more comfortable, with still photography, but, I really like working in both a lot.
Okay. We have one other question has popped up, and it says, this is a broad question about audience messaging and meaning. Do you think your work speaks to a regional Southern audience in a way that is different from a broader audience?
Um, hmm. I chose to focus on the South because I've only lived in the South and I've done most of my traveling in the South. And I think that in a lot of ways, it kind of comes down to a metropolitan area versus a rural area. And, metropolitan areas, of course, are going to be more progressive, but, I can't speak to how life is outside of, the Southern region, but, I hope that the work can reach, beyond, our Mason-Dixon line to people who might be in similar situations, because they're in a more secluded town.
So this that viewer has a follow-up question concerning a national or international audience. So have you had the chance to share any of this work with any audience people beyond our region, and how might they react to it?
Some of this work, has been shared on Facebook to, beyond just my small friends list to a more international audience. And, I've had, I've only had good responses so far. I haven't traveled internationally, so I can't really talk about how it would affect, people internationally. But, I always think that art can always go beyond, where it was created, that it can always reach somebody, outside of, how I am living. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing your work and answering all the viewers' questions, and good luck in where this work takes you, and good luck in completing your MFA in photography.
Thank you.
So now we will turn our attention to Surgeon Marjanovic, who is a third-year Master of Fine Arts student in graphic design, who has shown his work to his thesis committee and defended the work there, and is now presenting it to the larger public. So Surgeon, we will now turn the channel over to you.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for joining me. I am Srđan Marjanovic, a third-year MFA candidate in graphic design at Louisiana Tech University School of Design. Let me tell you about my experience that led me to this thesis research I have been conducting for the past year. I grew up mostly in Spanish-speaking countries due to my father serving as a Yugoslavian diplomat for 30 years in South America and other parts of the world. Our family would live in one country for a period ranging from 1 to 4 years and then move to the next embassy my father was assigned to serve. Every change was a new beginning for me. Having a different background from the rest of the classmates made me a target for bullying. Thanks to my parents' education and dedication, I developed self-confidence, which was essential to act quickly and resolving the issue of being bullied. From ages 10 to 14, I changed schools 3 times, and I was bullied in all 3. Thanks to my parents, I was able to overcome the emotional impact caused by bullying. What is the problem? This quote gets the essence of how we could influence bullying as a social issue. We need to show our children ways to which we can generate confidence for themselves. If we do not show them the way, then they will try to find it on their own. Ironically, that is how bullying starts. And that quote led me to ask question, my thesis question. Can social emotional learning be a long-term solution for bullying? Due to my family's constant travel, my parents were always educating me about how to believe in myself and not allow bullying to wear me down. Most parents are unable to teach their children the way my parents guided me, and so that task falls upon teachers. The Department of Education has developed many strategies to bring awareness to the problem of bullying, but most of the strategies have been relatively unsuccessful. Bullying is an unwanted, intentional, and repeated aggressive behavior among school-age children involving a real or perceived power imbalance. Research shows that 1 in 3 kids are bullied in schools. Bullying equally impacts all genders, races, and ethnicities. Bullying can start early in preschool and then increases during elementary school, peaks in the middle school, and generally decreases in high school. It can happen in different social settings, but most commonly occurs in the presence of other children when there is a little or no adult supervision. Example may include at races during after-school activities. When thinking about the design opportunity, there is a gap between the bureaucracy and the victim's emotions. Currently on bureaucratic side, the opportunity is to increase empathy towards this social issue by implementing policies that only control the issue. On the victim side, I ask the question, how the victim can be encouraged to build self-esteem in order to take action. Key factors to seriously consider that define bullying outcomes are ignorance equals fear, and silence equals tragedy. I went out and conducted interviews and surveys to empathize and define the problem. During the interviews and surveys, victims of bullying repeatedly mentioned how essential it is to have self-confidence. Those interviewed also suggested empathy is an important component. These are some common characteristics on both sides of this social issue. It is difficult for school administrators to discuss bullying since their school's reputation could be compromised. Through the research and exploration phase, it took me quite some time to figure out the basic components of and overall understanding of bullying. Once gathered, I applied to the information of this environmental design that was created with different guided paths, using facts about bullying and creating a victim's path to showcase the victim's emotional journey. In this installation, the solution was symbolically represented by using glasses with the red and blue lenses that filtered the victim's confusing situation in order to help the victims calmly perceive convenient resolution of the problems. Looking through only the red lens allowed the individual to see one side of the issue, while looking through only the blue lens revealed the opposing viewpoint. Unfortunately, the victim lives in a world of fear and confusion. From bystanders' perspective, in this case the audience, the solution appears as simple as putting on the glasses to decode the message. This environmental design served to address bullying is a design context and opened the idea of co-creation by inviting the audience to interact with the design installation. Referring back to the interview session, a solution for bullying needs to treat the problem at its root, and every personal issue begins as an individual and his or her emotional formation, as is shown here for one of the quotes in the interview sessions. This process showed that the problem is very personal, so the solution should also be personal. For my case studies, I analyze the following 3 anti-bullying campaigns. The call to action of the reward campaign is centered on digital media messaging. This was to encourage downloads and users to share content and organization to offer official support in which the tool recorrects offensive words. In the second campaign, when users type "I am witness" on Twitter, a custom icon of a speech bubble with an eye in the center appear in the tweet, enabling teens and others to take a stand against bullying and show support for victims of bullying. The Bully Project campaign is a social action campaign inspired by the award-winning documentary film Bully, which created a national movement to stop bullying. The message should be tailored to fit the pre-existing beliefs of the audience by strategically using one of these key rhetorical factors in a message. In other words, understanding the audience's feelings is fundamental in order to effectively persuade them. Using pathos, persuasion technique, it is the most appealing in order to evoke audience's emotion and trigger the urge to take action. The next 3 programs uses teaching to turn negativity into positivity. Kiva is a permanent anti-bullying program across Finland in grade 1 through 9 and supported by Finnish Ministry of Education. The essence of the program's success is based upon researching bullying and its mechanism. The Kiva program is a successful model to follow and works in other countries because it's constantly part of their entire educational system. Meanwhile, in the United States, educational system is decentralized. It is proven that the program's essence works in the United States, but on a smaller scale and a case-to-case basis. For example, Second Step is an anti-bullying program in the United States. It is a classroom-based curriculum implemented from kindergarten through high school. The program shows significant positive results. Rachel's Challenge is an organization in the United States that strives to reduce violence. Rachel Scott was first student killed in the Columbine High School shooting in 1999. Rachel wrote in her final essay, I have this theory that if one person can go out of their way to show compassion, then we'll start a chain reaction. People will never know how far a little kindness can go. All these models share a common element of social emotional learning. So what is social emotional learning? Social emotional learning is the process through which children and adults understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. Referring back to persuasion theory, emotion is the key. How do we visualize emotions to make it recognizable for children? Everyone has a different mental picture of emotions, and that is okay, because we experience those in our own unique way. At the beginning of the design process, there were plenty of ideas, but it takes a journey into unknown to get to this question right here. In strategy phase, my research looked at parents, schools, and public institutions like libraries. I chose school and teachers because they have direct impact on children. The strategy is to work from bottom up in order to change the culture from an individual standpoint. Parents trust parents trust teacher in United States, and this makes teachers the perfect focus for the campaign. Teachers have a passion for children care and sharing knowledge, which enables opportunity to create fun and short activities about empathy and self-knowledge as an add-on in the classrooms. Teenagers 13 to 70 years old were original target audience. However, working with the younger target audience of 5 to 10 years old will be more effectively at preventing bullying. The process started by running 20 broad ideas through various focus groups with a variety of concepts that were then narrowed down to two main ideas, using mascot as a campaign ambassador and creating a set of activity cards. An important aspect of this research was we talk to children. Reading, watching, and listening are only a few ways of passive learning. In other words, having a deeper understanding about active learning resets the tone for the final outcome. Why mascots? Mascots are important. They started from 1800s and they are still being used today to remind us of products, brands, and organizations. The mascot is a direct visual representation of the campaign with a mission to create a sense of belonging. A mascot captivates long-lasting impressions and connects emotionally with its target audience. In this way, the mascot is direct visual representation that carries on the information. Through my research, I asked why international events, for example, Olympic Games, use mascots. They use them to remind us of the culture and the place where the Olympics were held. Mascots reach broad audience without any language barrier or limitations. The intention in my research is to make the awareness campaign more personal by having an ambassador to connect emotionally with its target audience. Based on based of research, porcupine encapsulates everything that I try to do. This type of animal is dazzle and it stands for itself. This mood board analyzes different forms representing a porcupine. These animals are singular, peaceful, and stand their ground. They appear passive, but when a different animal attempts to attack them, porcupines possess an assertive attitude and use their quills to defend themselves. This started with a quick expressive sketch to capture the idea. That sketch served as a reference to create a form with Play-Doh and prove the sense of its shape in space. Body language was added to convey the emotions. The activity goal is to stimulate conversation among children about emotions. This activity of teaching empathy and self-confidence is divided in 4 stages for children to practice: understanding, observing, opening up, and listening. Rebus was used as a visual language tool to attract children's attention. Rebus is substitution of visual elements for words, sounds, and syllabi. A rebus challenges individuals to build complex ideas from a schematic or familiar iconography. I discovered the work of Burns during this research period. His visual language used primary colors and simple geometric forms to capture the viewer's attention and share memorable content. This technique is paramount to creating a visual language for children to learn about emotions. This technique in visual communication is called substitution, and this famous poster designed by Paul Rand demonstrates it. Stage 1 begins by answering a set of questions. Each question has a list of possible answers with the unique icons representing each answer to engage a child's curiosity. Stage 2. The answers selected by each child create a unique abstract image of their feelings. Stage 3. Children name it by using their feelings. In this way, they practice recognizing and categorizing their emotions. Stage 4 confirms and clarifies each emotion by using a set of activity cards. Each card is color coded based on 5 basic emotions. Yellow equals happy, blue equals sad, red equals angry, black equals scared, green equals calm. The back of each card explains the meaning and the purpose of particular emotion. Outreach strategies. The slogan for this campaign is Think Twice, Act Nice. In other words, it is a reminder to empathize before you act. The website is the hub of the awareness campaign. The main, the main menu is composed of 5 pages. Home provides information about social emotional learning. Empathy offers tips and practice instruction. Activity features the questionnaire and activity cards. Shop presents all the campaign's promotional material. Contact allows the user to submit their questions and feedback. Let's not forget social media, because it's one of the important channels to drive traffic toward the campaign's website by using rebus and messages about 5 basic emotions. The message of the campaign is tailored by using helpful tips of each emotion in order to evoke viewers' a reaction with the ultimate goal to visit the website. The purpose of billboards is to create awareness. They are effectively used to broadcast the message of the campaign. The signages, pole banners, posters have the same purpose as billboards, but in direct and smaller scale. The purpose of t-shirts, stickers, and office supplies is to introduce elements of the campaign with 5 basic emotions and make its presence. This awareness campaign is just a slight lead to something powerful and beyond the fact of bullying as a social issue. It is an opportunity to start transitioning the future of education as a whole for the generations to come. This is a vision. This is the vision toward the world with mutual understanding, respect, and feelings that truly connects people with the common goal and benefit of our environment, society, and ourselves. Let's start by leading by example. And remember, think twice, act nice. Thank you. And now I will actually like to give thank you for the School of Design faculty at Louisiana Tech University, who went above and beyond with all their dedication and help over the past 3 years. Thanks to them and the program, I am a better designer with a much deeper understanding of what means design. I like to give special thanks to my thesis chair committee and mentor, Professor Tom Futrell. Thank you for all the extra time and effort that you have dedicated for me. I can thank you enough for all the support you gave me as a person, a designer. It was quite a journey and a pleasure to be part of your program. Thank you for all the help through all the instructions, for both of my graphic design professors that have been part of my thesis committee, Professor Todd Maggio and Professor Jake Duggar. Thank you to my graduate program coordinator, Professor Frank Hamrick, for all the discipline and life lessons that you shared with me. Your dedication and support is unforgettable. Thank you to School of Design, Director Kara Puyak, for outstanding program and the overall support. Thank you for all my MFA family, for all ups and downs that we shared together in my last 3 years. Thank you for my father, mother, and sister for all the sacrifice in life they have been done for me. Thank you for my wife and daughter for all the support and sacrifice and encouragement that they gave me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Surgeon. We have some questions that have come in via YouTube that they'd like for you to answer, as far as how did this research change you as a designer?
It drastically changed me. My BFA program, that it practically limited my vision toward only print, eventually in digital form, to express ideas. But in this program as a grad student, it really pushes me to see a different perspective, that designers have the power to even influence culture. So yes, now I am not a limited designer that thinks only on 2D surfaces. Instead, I look a problem as a whole.
Do you see the current pandemic as impacting your research in the campaign and the virus?
I see that some pre-materials are limited, and maybe the activity itself. But let's not forget that the essence, the idea of this campaign is hosted on the website, which is the hub of the entire campaign.
So how do you compare this campaign that you're working on to prevent bullying in comparison to the other existing campaigns?
Or already existing campaigns are dealing in prevention and awareness, but this campaign is more about stimulate the idea and seeing the other side of this issue, and in a deeper sense, which practically is looking inwards of an individual to actually empathize and give us some sense of some sense of their own emotions, to be able to see those emotions in others. And that's how that kindness starts.
So one person has a question here of, have you distributed any of these materials and resources to teachers, or do you plan to do so?
I distributed some prototypes in the development process, and they were really excited for the final product. So yes, over the course of next 2 months, I will be distributing in schools and particular teachers the set of cards and other promotional materials, and I'm looking forward for their feedback.
So another question we have here is, does being a father influence your decision on making a campaign of bullying prevention?
Definitely, the answer is yes. Um, having on your own in your own life a direct reference and example, it really brings you some thoughts and ideas of how and what you can anticipate in the future to protect your child. So yes.
So I think this is the last question we may have here. Do you have any particular graphic designers that influence you, or any graphic design books that have been a good resource for you?
Yes. Frank Chimero, and thanks to Professor Jake Dugard, um, it was an unknown designer for me, but I really love his theoretical part of design as a whole, as well as Stefan Segemeiser, another famous designer that challenges the current views and understandings in a very particular way. Um, I also come from, my specialty is brand and identity systems, and I can never forget about Paul Rand, which is practically one of the most important identity designers.
A question here that someone sent in is, how can emerging designers learn from your process of research and discovery?
Practically, they can take my example and find the aspect of empathizing um, as a very crucial phase of this research. The reason why I'm saying that is because we already, as a designers, have certain perceptions about things, and we can actually go and look for some research through internet. But once when you go out there and try to empathize with professionals in the field and others, your all the perceived notion that you already had is practically changed and influenced. So this research follows the design thinking process, and and yes, they can actually use this model for other type of issues, or the same to continue on a broader level.
So a question that just came in is about your intent to distribute these, whether it's going to be local or statewide or a particular region, because this person says that Louisiana was the most bullied state in 2019.
So at this point is local, and in general, this research, it was based on the local. And as long I am I actually gonna collaborate with a writer and try to develop some other applications that we can use for this campaign. And with the trial error system through various feedbacks from other schools that we're gonna apply this campaign, we will see how it goes from now on.
Thank you very much, Surgeon. Good luck with this campaign that you're creating. I hope it's effective. I hope you're able to get it out and make a positive impact in a lot of schools with a lot of kids. And good luck with completing your MFA this spring. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. I'd like to thank you for all the questions that were submitted and your time and attention that you gave to our two candidates tonight, Nathaniel Rowe in photography and Surgeon Marjanovic in graphic design. Surgeon, we've had one last question come in. Have you looked at how to tackle a lack of confidence which stems from home?
So like I said in this research, not many children have parents. So as the social emotional learning through teaching could really shape children's life. So they have to rely on good education, school education, to be able to build that self-confidence. And let's remember that bullying is already formed issue. We have to start from the early age to be able to change the future of bullying.
Thank you, Surgeon. Thanks so much. And again, thanks to all of you for tuning in, and everyone out there, stay safe. Have a good evening.